Hi there, yeah, this is actually part 9. I made a mistake on the other two videos, saying it was part 7 and 8 when I missed out part 6, so ignore that and just carry on the parts how they're titled. Yeah, well really I suppose in some ways I'm putting myself on the line talking about these experiences, because obviously some of them do sound very extreme and mad and silly and humorous and crazy, but that I'm trying to give you an insight into what psychosis can mean. That's definitely my experience of psychosis, and the conversations I've shared with other people who've had psychosis as well enable me to feel more human, really. So I'm hopefully trying to do that for someone else. You know, someone else who's going through psychosis, or just interested in psychosis, to for those people who have been through psychosis or going through, as well, to help them feel a little bit more human. Because really, when I was going through all this, I kind of felt like I was the only person on the earth going through what I was going through, and it really felt like a complete, you know, eternal, like a complete, like life or death struggle I was going through all on my own, and no one seemed to be able to understand me. The people in my life couldn't deal with me. They didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know how to deal with me. And it wasn't really until years later, after being in the psychiatric hospital, that I found out about mental health charities, and discovered other people who've been through similar things. So I really want to be that person, want to share my story to help other people who've had psychosis to feel more comfortable with themselves and feel like they're not the only ones who go through what they've gone through, and also again as a means of information for people who are interested in schizophrenia and psychosis, because I think it is important we talk about experiences, but obviously some of them are extremely embarrassing and kind of, twisted and confused and mad and crazy, that most people never really want to talk about them. And you can't blame them really, because a lot of what I've gone through and what I've said already on the videos are very kind of weird, wacky and funny and just silly, some of them really. But they are what I went through with psychosis, so I do want to give you a true account. So yeah, going back to where I left off on part 8, so I was having these Native American voices in my head, and they felt like a true connection to these Native American spirits, these spirit people who exist on a village in the spirit world, and they were doing shamanic Native American chants and dances to help try and send healing my way, and I felt a lot more positive when I was with them. I had other experiences where I believed I was communicating with Socrates. He was giving me advice in my head. I was communicating with the Greek gods, and they were talking to me saying eat things with sunlight, obviously because the food industry was big, and so eat things that had almost like they understood it to me have like trapped sunlight in there. Other gods and other spirit guides and things were saying to me only eat in daylight, where the energy of the sun is around, and don't eat at night, which I tried to do for a while, but I found very difficult because at night time I'd have like monstrous cravings for food and things, because obviously my body was in a really bad state. My blood sugar must have been massively all over the place. I'd fasted for ages, not in a healthy way, not in a good environment, and when I did eat, it was like chocolate or jacket potatoes or just crisps and all sorts. Or I remember one time actually I bought a loaf of bread, and I ate a whole loaf of bread in one go, had toast and all sorts, and ate the whole loaf of bread. And this is sort of like crazy cravings and feasts, and then massive periods of starvation and things, and not drinking water either and things for days and days and days. So I was getting extremely ill, and obviously having coming back from the woods, I really, there were certain nights I was literally freezing, and I felt the cold of the earth literally coming to my bones, and I probably had some quite serious physical conditions which I don't think were ever that mainly picked up on or addressed, which is another point I think mental health hospitals do seriously neglect. They do give you a blood test and overall checkup when you're there, but they do not look in depth enough what physical, mineral, vitamin deficiencies and other things that people might have, which is obviously usually comes hand in hand with mental health issues. So yeah, for a while I was communicating with Socrates, and I felt the spirit of Socrates and other things. I was speaking to the spirit of Kurt Cobain. I had the spirit of Bruce Lee in my head, who was trying to fight away these demons for me and things. And this was all kind of massive. And if I'd seen something on TV, it became part of my reality. I remember watching this Chinese animation where this young boy was making paintings, and in his paintings these figures that he painted would come to life. And I was doing lots of sketches around that time, and after I saw that, that was happening to me as well. I would literally do these pictures of these people and all this stuff was flooding through. And I do believe a lot of it was from my genuine past lives, but other things were confused and altered and created as part of imagination. And that's why it's been very difficult for me to kind of decipher what were true past lives coming through and what was kind of my imagination and mind literally playing with it, kind of confusing itself, and massive amount of confused information. I do believe a lot of what I went through was genuine contact with spirit guides and gods and goddesses and things. That's what I believe. That's part of my beliefs and my experience. But a lot of it was jumbled up, created fantasy, mixed with imagination, but mixed with a lot of spiritual truths as well and spiritual connection. I mean, for quite a while I had Mother Earth and Gaia in my head, and Pan, who I'm very much into the kind of pagan gods and goddesses, and the Celtic kind of like tribal ways. And I was having Mother Earth and Pan in my head for a long time. They were trying to advise me to spend time in nature and things like before. And I remember for quite a while, for about 4 or 5 days, which was extremely powerful experiences, when I was walking about, I had this kind of mass fear and this massive guilt complex that I was sucking in the atmosphere around me. And I remember lying in my bed after having a long walk around town and the countryside, and I lied in my bed and I had this extremely powerful vision that I created some sort of whirlpool that was sucking in all the atmosphere, the positive atmosphere, the good air, and it was sucking it into my kind of like intestines area, my small intestines area. And I literally, in my mind, this was what I experienced, these kind of all these clouds and this positive atmosphere that the divas and the nature spirits had all created, and I was sucking it away into just my bowels of hell, which is what the voices were saying to me after. You're sucking that atmosphere into the bowels of hell. And I literally saw my inner self on kind of the seat of my kind of bowels, my bowels and my intestines being like the bowels of hell. And I'd created so much darkness, and all this darkness had come into me that was literally sucking away all the positive atmosphere. And I saw all these clouds and these weather systems kind of whirlpooling into my bowels area, my sacral chakra, and I felt my sacral chakra had like sucked in all this good energy, and I felt massive amount of guilt for that. And when September the 11th happened in America, the Twin Towers, I remember seeing it on TV, and I was really shocked, and I started to believe it was my fault, and the fact that I kind of refused and got too well to be the next Messiah, that Lord and the other gods wanted something exciting to happen on Earth. If the second coming wasn't going to happen, which they've decided it could no longer happen now unless they had a nominee for the Messiah, that they had to create some sort of war and some more excitement for them. So in my reality, in my experience, they had prompted these people to go and blow up the Twin Towers to create more war and excitement, because this being Lord in my mind, he was a spiritual entity that kept dark souls away from Earth, but he was also a bit kind of devious. He wanted something exciting and to happen, and he was kind of like he felt like he watched over the Earth, and he was entertained by things like war and conflict and things. And he took the piss out of me a lot in my head. But obviously this theme, this expression, this projection I had of taking the piss, I have had a lot of trouble in my life with people who have taken the mickey and joked. I'm a very literal person, so if someone says something to me which is like a joke, I quite often don't understand it, and I'll take it as an offence, really. It's only been the last couple of years I've really kind of loosened up and been more jokey, but still I have this kind of thing in my head where I don't quite understand jokes and mickey takes and piss takes. So I think the theme of the Joker, like I said in the other videos, was in my psychosis a lot. So I had that experience. I also had another experience when I was still dealing with Lord. This being Lord was in my head for quite a while on and off, and I was lying down on my bed, and I felt literally frozen, as if like these ghosts and these spirits were holding me down on my bed. And Lord said to me, "Oh, I will show you a vision." And in my head, I literally felt I was completely outside my body, but all I could view was this massive view ahead of me, and there was a lion of light that represented the eternal light, and a crocodile of darkness that represented the eternal darkness, and they were in this kind of dance, like a struggle. They were fighting each other, and Lord said to me, "This is the eternal struggle of light and darkness, and this is a battle that you have stepped out of, that you have failed because you were fighting for light, and now all you bring is darkness." But this vision was really powerful, and for those few moments as I saw it, it was almost like a spiritual archetype of this lion of light and this crocodile of darkness fighting never-endingly. And my beliefs since then have kind of been like, I don't want to fight for either force. I don't want to fight darkness. I don't want to be a bearer of light. I want to be a peacemaker of the two. And no matter how mad that sounds, that's what I've agreed now. I don't want to fight darkness. I don't want to fight light. I don't want to be part of any fight. I want to be a peacemaker through and through, spiritually, in my own life with people, and stuff. So that was a really powerful experience. Another experience I had in my bedroom was I remember literally almost being like tied to my bed, frozen, and this being called Heart of Darkness, who in my head they said Heart of Darkness, and I know this is all messy, crazy stuff, and it's probably quite hard to listen to, but I'll try and explain to you about some experiences you can go through. This being called Heart of Darkness, which was a dark sorcerer in Central America. He was a Native American who got somehow very embittered and angry, and kind of like felt hated by his community, and he was exiled from his community, and he went and practiced dark sorcery on the outskirts of this Native American village, and he basically did a lot of dark sorcery and cast it upon other Native Americans. And in my mind, he was called Heart of Darkness, and he was trying to get me to be part of the fight between light and darkness. And he literally held my energy body, and he stopped me from breathing. And he said, "If you are the one, the warrior, you will be able to take this." And he tried to suffocate me, and he believed that if I was to be the warrior, I would come through it. Anyway, this is all. It's quite difficult for me to speak about all this because these are really quite jumbled, mad experiences, and very traumatic for me to go through, because these were my total reality. It almost as if I wasn't in my body at all. I was just fighting some mad, multi-dimensional spiritual battle in my head. So many kind of bad experiences. But I remember when going back to when I was saying I was robbing those few chocolate bars, I did get arrested by the police, and they treated me like I was some sort of like, murderer or something. They got out of the car, they threw me against the fence, handcuffed me, took me down to the police station, threatened to strip search me, got me to pull down my trousers. I pulled them a bit of the way down and burst out crying, and the woman police officer there took pity on me and said, leave him alone. And I was released about 4 hours later, guess with precaution or something, I can't remember. But and then other things were going on in the community, but the whole thing was really quite hard for me. Well, obviously the whole psychosis and my schizophrenia was a massive thing to deal with, and I'll go on, I'll talk about other experiences on another video. Yeah, okay, thanks.